Hey YouTube, it's no secret by now, I really like the NX8 1:8. It's very compact and I found the 1X on it to be a true 1X. Now granted, there is a little bit of barreling or what you'd call fisheye. I find that matters a whole lot less than the daylight bright reticle. And also what night vision folks would call zone 1 and zone 2 is a true 1X. And I find that matters quite a bit. One thing I want to discuss today is how do you set the diopter for this optic? And this optic lives and dies with its diopter. People who have issues with it, I believe, are having issues setting diopter. So there's several ways to set diopter. One way is to dial to 8 power and aim at a light colored object without any features to draw your eye and slowly focus the reticle until it's just tack sharp. And you can do that. And that works really well with high power optics, 4 to 16s, etc. But when you get into something with a 24mm objective, a fixed parallax, and a zoom ratio of 1 to 8, that doesn't work so well. So a lot of people are setting these like they do their hunting scopes or PRS scopes, and they're really frustrated with it. It's just not working out for their eyes. So what I would like to do is touch on how I set my diopter. I will dial it to 8 power, loosen my ring, in whichever order you want to do that, the diopter lock ring, and I will back the diopter adjustment all the way off. And then, now this scope has a fixed parallax of 125 meters per Nightforce. So I'll laser something at 125 meters and I will back the diopter all the way off, and then I will rapidly turn it until both the reticle and my target at 125 meters are sharp together on the same plane. And I want to touch on that for a minute. Why do we set it at the 0 parallax? We do that because at 0 parallax, that is where the image and the target are on the same plane. And what that means is a shooter, if they're on different planes and you are out of your eye box, you're going to get some point of impact shift. And so Nightforce and most other companies set their low power variables at between 100 and 150 yards or meters for their 0 parallax, because that's kind of where these scopes really shine, is the closer ranges. So we want to set our diopter where everything is crisp at the range our parallax is set at, which is where everything would be mechanically crisp. Now, parallax is not dependent on your vision. However, your diopter is. So your diopter setting at your parallax 0 is going to be independent to your vision. And when we set our diopter to our parallax, that kind of trues the whole system. You're unable to get a sharp focus on your reticle and your target well beyond your 0 parallax, because at that point your reticle and the target in the optic projected are separated. And that's the unfortunate reality of low power variables, unlike I think March is one of the few, maybe one of the only ones that has an adjustable parallax in a low power variable. And that's what leads to a lot of these low power variables where people say the glass gets a little bit muddy at the top end of their zoom range when you start shooting distant targets 300 yards out, 600 yards out. The glass can get a little bit muddy because you have parallax in that system now. And your image and your reticle are no longer on the same plane. So if you focus on your reticle and make your reticle sharp, which the human eye, I believe, a healthy young human eye has about 40 diopters that it can adjust to. So your eye will adjust to that reticle. When you adjust to that reticle, your target will get a little bit blurry. Or if you adjust to your target, focus on your target, your reticle will get a little blurry. That's the sad reality of a fixed parallax system. All of them do it. That's just the way optics work. And that's why we true our diopter at 125 meters for this optic, so that everything is trued in the system to our eye at 125 meters, because closer than that or further than that, it won't necessarily be true. Now here comes the rub. This is a low power variable and you're going to have to decide, do you want to skew your performance to 8 power or do you want to skew your performance to 1 power? Because when you dial diopter, you slightly change magnification, okay? In an ideal world, you dial your diopter to 125 meters, which would match your parallax, you'd be done. That's not necessarily the case here, and it's going to depend on your eyes as to how this works, because everyone's eyes have a different diopter setting. So what we may have to do with this optic, what I found I have to do with this optic is I will dial it back to 1 power at 125 yards. And I will get outside the eye box, drop in, drop out, in, out of the eye box, in the eye box. And I'll play with that as well as the diopter until I get the object at 125 meters to appear the same in my uncorrected eye as I do my scope eye. And I'll make diopter adjustments until I can get that object to not change size when I'm looking through the scope. And when I'm doing that, I can literally look over there 5 feet away and read the digital clock on my microwave. Both eyes open, just fine, no issue. If I don't do this, what'll happen is when I turn the illumination bright at 1 power and use both eyes to aim at a target, that reticle will be kind of blurry and screwy. It's not gonna look good. And so I will true first at 125 yards, the 8 power, then I'll come in, that gets me really close, and then I'll come in and I will true my 1 power. And what I've found is that at about 80 to 100 yards, that makes my 8 power super crisp. You move beyond that, you start to shift your parallax, it starts to separate the image versus the reticle, and you start to get kind of a muddy image the further you go from 125 meters. Again, that's the unfortunate reality of a fixed parallax optic. We all just have to live with it unless we buy March optics, which they have their own set of pluses and minuses like every product out there. So, like I say, what I've found, a lot of people that don't like this scope, they have it actually put in the time to properly dial the diopter at 1 power and actually use it as intended in that manner. Once again, want to touch on locking this down. I pull this scope cap off. It's a Nightforce rubber cap. Ironically, it's the best cap I've found for this thing. Anyway, cheap strap wrench right here. Hold your lock ring, rotation, lock it down. You'll get about 1.5 millimeters movement out of the ocular versus the lock ring compared to just using your man hands on it. That's gonna keep it from shooting loose. I've got hundreds and hundreds of rounds on these. Using that method, no electrical tape needed, and that tends to lock it down. So pay special attention to setting your diopter on these. Set it up properly. You'll have amazing 1x performance and you'll have good 8x performance. As you push it out to distance, unfortunately with any fixed parallax system, the image will get a little bit muddy. And that's just the reality of it. But this scope has very good glass. Some of the lenses are HD, some of the lenses are not HD. It's kind of a mixture in this tube as to the function of the lens and the return on that. But I've found the glass in this to be excellent. And barring the physical, mechanical, and optical limitations, it's been an amazing scope, and they're the low power variables at this time that I prefer to use in my dual carbines. This setup here weighs 27.4 ounces, and that's including my Acro P2 spare battery containing cap here. So anyway, I hope this information helps you. Maybe you bought one of these, you're frustrated with it, you don't know why the image is wonky. Maybe this will get you on the right path and help you to enjoy your scope and use it to the best, highest of its potential. And anyway, as always, go out there, be safe, and shoot stuff.